Okay, welcome to Project 1, Part 2. Just before we ended, I accidentally double-clicked on a button and it created some code behind. Let me explain to you what's going on with that, and then I'll show you. Use this as a learning moment because it's probably going to happen to you. I had yet to rename this button at that time when I double-clicked on it. It was still button 1. So what it did is it created an event handler. Let's talk about that quickly. If you double click on any object, it will create in the code view the default event. Now, what is an event? Event is something the user or another program does to cause something to happen. And with common sense, you will know that the default event for a button is what? What do people do with buttons? Well, they click on them. Okay, so that's the event, the default event. There are other events you can manage. They're mouse over, mouse down, mouse up, all sorts of things. Okay, and every object has a different amount and different types of properties, but they have some commonalities too, and events. If you come over here now, you don't have to double click on it. You can come over here to the events button and it will show you. Now notice what's here. It says button click. All right. There's button 1 click. There's what I didn't want to happen. This is why you need to go ahead and do these things and name these things correctly before you start putting code in, because once you do, then you got to go back and fix it. All right. So let's go back to here. Whoops. There's the code behind. You want to stay out of there. I'll show you in a minute what's going on. It wires all these things together. So if I want to process and do something when the user clicks on this button or a button, then I'm going to have a click event for it. Now notice it went ahead and built one for me called button 1 click. Well, I don't want that to be button 1 click because I've changed the name of that to BTN exit. So I'm going to come over here and see if this will work. If it doesn't, I'll show you. Whoops, you got to spell it right. Show you a new way to do it, a different way to do it. All right, now let me go in over here, and I'm going to right click on this form and go to View Code. That's how you get in and out of your code. Notice that it built another one called button click. I want to delete this one because it's the wrong name. See how you can get into trouble with this? Oh, one other thing. In C# and C++, you have curly braces that indicate a group, okay? Visual Basic doesn't have this, but most languages have some kind of delineation where you have a start and an end, and all the lines of code, when you end a line of code, you have to end it with a semicolon. So that's something you'll pick up as we go. This is just to get you acclimated to what we're doing. All right. Now, here is the event handler. So if I put something in here, like in this case, exit, then I need to exit this application when this event fires. When the user clicks on this event will fire, and any code you have in between these curly braces is going to run. Okay, that's what's so beautiful about this particular environment. And if you look at one of my handouts about the message handling, Windows message handling, it's different than most applications that are like DOS based. If you have like a DOS based, or what they call dashboard in Visual Studio application, it's going to sit there and query the keyboard. It's going to sniff out the keyboard every so many milliseconds. So it's using processor time even if it's not doing anything. Conversely, a Windows application, as soon as it loads into memory, it does what it's got to do, and then it just sits there. It's not doing anything. There's a callback what we used to call a callback function in the code behind that builds for you, that will wake this application up when a message is received to see if there is an event handler for it. If it finds one, like right here, okay, then it will run any code you put in here. In this case, we want to put some code in here that will end the application because they click the exit button. But before we do that, I want to compile this thing. So I'm going to save it. So getting back to if you double click on this, it will create a default event handler. Now, you don't always want a default event. You might want something else. But regardless, you can come over here and select the object, and there are all kinds of events that you can handle. Key down, key up, key press, mouse click, mouse down, mouse enter. I mean, just tons of stuff. auto size changed, all sorts of things. All right, let's go back to our properties real quick because some people have trouble with that. And then I'm going to do A to Z. There you go. Nope. That's it. There you go. There are your properties. Okay, so you can go back and forth. There are your events. Those are your properties. So don't forget that. All right, so let's save it. And I want to run this thing. Now, we're running in debug mode, which is fine because we want to debug it. Once you finish with an application, you're ready to ship it or for it to go live or send it to me. Well, you don't have to. You can leave it in debug mode for me, but you can you can set it to release. It won't put all that code in there for debugging, which causes it to have code bloat, makes the exe bigger and that kind of thing. But you won't worry about that for this class because it's an intro class. But anyway, let's go to the build menu. Now you can press F5 to build and start the debugger. And sometimes you'll need to clean it and rebuild it, but most of the time you can just press F5. So let's do that. Or select your menu item. Let's see what it does. 5. There it goes. So it started the build. Let's see if it gives me any complaint. Oh, here we go. I forgot about this. I've got to figure out how to disable my antivirus. In fact, I can go do that now, I guess. Well, I'll just do it in the next video. I won't bother you with that. It'll come up in a minute anyway. It says it takes 15 seconds, but okay, come on back. There we go. All right, well, it popped up my window. Now, remember, this is not what's running. This is the parent. This is the actual child or the application window because it's inheriting from whatever I've done over here. Notice I've got 2 buttons, right? Now, if I click Say It, nothing happens. If I click Exit, nothing happens. And the reason is because I hadn't put any code in there. Now, don't come over here and click on this red X to end your debug session. First thing I do is put an Exit button and put some code in there to exit it. But you can come over here and click Stop Debugging. Okay? So let's go ahead and go to our exit button because that's the easiest one. And we're going to get inside these opening and closing curly braces, which attach it to the header of this method because it's an event handler, a click event handler method. Now, there is something called the this pointer, THIS. That points to the current instance of this application because you can have multiple instances, all right? You can also do it using the form name because that's actually where the buttons contain, but I always use this. That's the pointer of this application. So if you type this and press the dot operator, you'll get in what's called IntelliSense. IntelliSense shows you all the methods and properties associated with this application. All right. I want to close this application. Now, if I didn't know exactly what I needed to do, I could just get IntelliSense to pop up and press a C, and it would take me to the C section. Now, if you type in an object name in a dot and you don't see IntelliSense, that means that is not a valid object name. You've misspelled it or something. Okay, so go back and look at that. So I want to do close. Now remember, methods always have arguments or an argument list. There may not be anything in there, but you got to have the opening and closing paren for that, and it stuck it in there. Now remember I said in C# and C++, every line has to end with a semicolon. If you don't put it in there, you're going to get an error when you run it. I'll show you that too right now. Let's save it. Always come over here and hit Save All. I do Control S, but you can hit Save All. If you just do Save, it'll only save the current code or designer view that you're in. If you do work in 2 or 3 files and you just hit this, it's only going to save the current one. So I just do Save All because that gets everything. But that's up to you. Now notice I've got a little squiggly line here. It says expected semicolon. That ought to be clear enough. But if I don't see it and I press debug, notice what I get. There were build errors. Would you like to continue and run the last successful build? Always say no. You got to fix it. All right. Don't want to run it if it compiles successfully the last time. Plus, I won't have all your changes in it. So always say no. And that's going to take you to your error list. Now, there can be one-to-many errors here. Always go to the first one and notice what it said. Expected, semicolon, expected. And double-click on it. When you do that, guess where it points to? Right where you need to put your your semicolon. How hard is that? Okay. All right, let's press F5 again. Shouldn't have any errors now, hopefully. And there we go with this. I'm going to turn this off eventually. I don't need it on our network anyway. Come on. There we go. There it goes. That's just my antivirus. All right, so still nothing here because I haven't even created an event handler for the Say It button, but I did create one for the Exit button. All right, so I'm going to click that and see what happens. There it goes. It ended. It ended the application. One thing I noticed, let's go back to Design View. We actually don't need Designer in here. I can close that. I didn't put the, I did put the ampersand in there. So I could have hit Alt X and it would be just like clicking on it. All right. So let me double click on Say It. I could come over here if it weren't the default event, click Events. So notice click is highlighted because that is the default event, and just add it that way. And it would stick it in. And notice what it did. It created another event handler for the object called Button Display. Now, I want to display a message here that says Hello World. Well, there are different ways to do that. I could put a label on the form and put the text in it, but let's use a message box. A message box is an intrinsic object that you don't have to declare. You just have to type in the name. Oops, you got to spell it right. Now, that's a crazy keyboard again. Now notice there are a bunch of different ones. IntelliSense shows me the M category, so I want a message box. Okay. I've got squiggly line because I don't have valid syntax yet, but I'm going to. What comes next? Well, your dot operator. That's what gives you the properties and methods associated with the message box object. Now I want the method show because I got to show this thing. So I'm going to double click on that. And remember, all methods have to have an argument list whether there's anything in it or not. Now here's something that IntelliSense is doing for you. In object-oriented design, you can have one method that has multiple instances or multiple definitions. This one has 21, and you can scroll through it. As long as you have a different number and or type of arguments, you can use that same name, and that's what they've done here. And it just so happens all I want to do is display text. So I'm going to go back to 1 of 21, which is the simple one. It's got one argument in it. Some of these don't have any. So how do you delineate a string? Because that's what it expects if you look here. And I don't think my mouse is tracking in these videos. That's something else I got to look at because it's a touchpad. String text. So it wants some text of type string. So quotes, double quotes. I type 1, it put 2 in there for me. Well, what are we going to put in there? Hello world. Okay. What's missing? You got to terminate the line with a semicolon. I'm going to save it, Control S. Always save before you run just in case something happens. Now you can have multiple lines in here, okay? And usually you do have multiple lines in here. So press F5. And here we go again. 15 seconds. I'll figure it out eventually. I'm learning this particular environment like you are learning Visual Studio. Okay. There is my form. All right, so I'm going to press. Now you could go back and look at Design View if you want while that's running. Now notice down here, when I change the view, it minimized my debug session, right? That can happen to you easy. Now if you go into code view while that's running, a little something for you, view code, and you start trying to type in stuff here, and being unaware that this is down here on the bottom right on your taskbar, it's not going to let you do it because it's running in debug mode, and you might not know why. First thing you want to do is go down here and look and see if you forgot it and it's running. If it is, you can end it, and then you can go in and change your code. But anyway, just a little bit of wisdom for you because it happens to me all the time. Let's click on the Say It button and see what we get. There's our message box with the text Hello World. So now you've really done something. Let's click Exit. I'm going to show you one other thing, and then I'll show you how to zip all this up and submit it. Let's set what's called a breakpoint. If you come over here to this gray area, you can toggle breakpoints on and off. Now, let me tell you what that does. When the user clicks and fires this event handler and it handles the event that the Windows messaging queue passed into it, it gets ready to run message box, it's going to stop right here. Now, you can press F10 to go to the next line of code, and you keep pressing F10, 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 and you can step through. Not only that, but you can add variables and objects to a watch list that will show up down here, and you can watch what they're doing, how variables change. I don't see how anybody in their right mind would try to debug an application without using the debugger. This is what it's for, and I don't know why these books don't do it. They don't usually. That's something I'm going to teach you, and I expect you to use it religiously, and you'll see why. If you've ever tried to debug, like in your CIS285 class, try to figure out what's wrong with something, it's hard to do, and not with this. Not with this. All right, so let's run it. I'm going to show you that it's going to break here when that event fires. And here comes my antivirus again, I'm sure. Oh, how about that? It didn't pop up. Cool. Maybe it figured out it was okay. So when I press say it, the execution of the code is going to break right where that dot is, and you'll see the little pointer. Now you can step through. Notice that it automatically puts some of these arguments in here. There's sender, shows you there's E. These all have to do with that button. You know, who sent the message, and you can query E and figure out which, you know, who sent it and what it says and all of its properties, things like that. Now, at this point, you can press F10 to step through. If I do that, step over, if I do that, F10 happens to be the key, the hotkey that Camtasia Studio ends the video. I don't want to do that, so I've got a problem with that too. But I'm going to press F5 to just see if it'll run to the next line. And it will, because that's going to pop up. See what happened? It stopped there, and you can press F10 and walk your way through. All right. Now, you get ready to turn that off, you just come over here and click on it, and that'll turn it off. That'll take the breakpoint out. You can also come over here and go to debug and whoops, clear all breakpoints, delete all breakpoints. I don't have any on here right now, but if I did, that would be enabled. So get in the habit of playing around with it. You're not going to hurt anything by trying it out. All right, it's still running down here, so let me click exit. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're ready to submit this for grading if you're going to get a grade for it. Or let's just pretend that this is a real project. And it is. It's just not one you're going to get graded for. You save all. Come down here, and the first thing I want you to do is close the solution. Don't exit the code editor. Close the solution. That'll leave it open, at least code editor. This is a cleaner way to do it. Plus, you might want to go to a different project. And you don't want to have to reopen it every time. So now you just come over here and exit. All right. So now you might want to go ahead and open up Blackboard. I have it open for the assignments page. I'm about to go to the assignments page. Let's go over here to our File Explorer. We're going to find our directory. Don't be putting stuff on the desktop. That's just not very professional at all. There's 285. Here are our projects. Notice what it did. It built project 1. So that's why you name these projects. Now, the book worked totally different. You got to work through your data files for that. Always name it whatever project it is. So the next one you do is going to be project 3, because really there's no project for chapters 1 and 2. We're just kind of scooting over those. You should already know that stuff. But this one, you know, we named project 1. You could have named it project 0 or attendance or whatever. It wouldn't matter. But when you finish this course, you'll have project 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, however many we got directories. Now, this is your outermost directory in your projects directory. This is very important, okay? I'm going to tell you why here in just a minute. If you don't send me all the stuff that's inside here, I can't run the project, and you're going to get a 0. This is what you zip up. But first, let's go in and look, okay? If you drill down in here, this is why you needed to go to View and turn on File Extensions, right? Because if you drill down in here and you see that .sln, that's your solution file. If you open that or double click on it, it will actually open up Visual Studio with that project in it. So it's a shortcut. It's just a really quick way to do it. You don't have to do it that way, but you can. And here's another project 1 directory, and inside there's all sorts of resources, designer. There's my C# code. There's some debug stuff, app configurations, properties. If you double click on binary, bin for binary, and go to debug, you will see an exe that you can run without opening up the project. That's what you deliver. Here it is. Hello world, and exit. There we go. All right, so let's back out of all this. You typically don't need to go in here unless you want to go to right there and run that. There's my outermost. It has to be the outermost project. It can't be the innermost. There's another one right there. You can't do that because I won't have a solution if you do that. You got to go just inside projects and find the outermost directory. Right click on it, send to, and just use compress folder and use the default name. You don't have to change it, just hit enter. Okay, this is what you're going to submit, not that. This has everything in it I'll need to grade your projects. You got to be real careful about this and learn how to do this. You can do this as many times as you want to. Build projects, zip them up, make sure everything's in there. Okay. If you look inside this zip, you'll see that there's project one, there's solution file, there's the bin directory, there's debug directory, and there's the exe. So all that stuff's in there, right? Okay. Let's minimize this. Let's go into Blackboard and go into 285 if you're not in there. Go to content, click on assignments. At some point it'll show up. Now, as of right now, I haven't put these out, but you obviously will see them early this morning. It is 8:44, so I'm getting ready to finish. I want you to click on this link right here. Okay. Notice there's 0 points, but you got to do it if you want to stay in the class. Click Browse My Computer for attached files. You've probably done this tons of times. If not, it's not that difficult. All right, we want to go here, go to our 285 directory. There's projects. There's the zip folder. That's what I want to submit. So I click open. It sticks. Notice it's attached. Project1.zip. Facebook buddies are driving me nuts. All right. Then you got to come. It's a two-step process. You have to attach the file. Then you have to submit the file. Submit it. Now you'll get a green banner at the top of your screen. I won't because I'm an instructor. Mine didn't submit. Yours will say submission successful. It'll be green. And then in your grade book, in my grades, you'll see a yellow circle with an asterisk or an apostrophe in it that says it's, you're waiting on whatever, waiting to be graded. Of course, there's no grade for that, but that'll happen with your other ones. So, all right, that's basically it. So make sure you watch this as many times as you need to until you kind of get a feel for it. There's a lot of stuff we did that's later chapters, but that's okay. All right. I'll see you at the next one.